All right, so my name's Nick, and this is a Park Post demo on the intro to DaVinci Resolve as an alternative to Premiere or an option alongside Premiere. Kind of a very quick run through. And our other admin member, Ethan.
Hello.
Said,
Hi, I'm Ethan. What is Resolve, Nick?
So why would we use Resolve? What is Resolve? So basically Resolve is a program that, as Shana talked about earlier, was used primarily for color and still used is for color, industry standard for everything. They then evolved, as Shana said, to incorporate more parts into it. They bought Fusion, they bought Fairlight, they bought something else that I can't remember. And now they're this kind of big suite of programs that are strung together in one big program. So why would we want to use it? Basically, if you financially, it's free if you export under 4K. So you can export up to UHD, which is like 3,000 for it. Shana, do you know?
Can you import 4K?
Yes, you can import as big a size as you want. I tested today with 7K red footage, and it did import and edit fine. It just did not export anything. Except
Why would you no.
why? That's a great question, and I can talk about that in a further demo if we'd like. So I also talked about this, but another reason to use Resolve as opposed to Premiere, it's kind of a one-stop shop in terms of what it can do. So you can edit, you can do your audio. You shouldn't do your audio. You should always do your audio in Pro Tools. But if you want to, you can do it in here, and it's not terrible. You can do visual effects in here. You can do motion graphics in here. You can organize all your media in here. You can make proxies in here. It's really a robust program. So another reason that people who have worked with Premiere and Resolve closely will know that when you export your Premiere timeline into Resolve, you have to deal with an XML file, which is an inarguably outdated file that always fails no matter what you do to move it over from Premiere to Resolve.
So every single software program does math differently. So for example, if you did a resize of, like, you change the scale or position of something in Premiere, when you bring it in somewhere else, they have different places that they put it, even though it's the same coordinate plane. It'll be different.
Mm-hmm.
So it always has some kind of error, like you're saying, when you transfer it to another program.
And that's also true with, like, so I was working on a film last semester that had a cross dissolve in something, and we were trying to export that into Resolve. So what we have to do is go into Premiere, render out that clip that had the cross dissolve into an individual file, and then bring it back into Resolve at the right time. It's way too confusing, and it shouldn't be made like that. So if you do it all in Resolve, you won't have this problem. It's also a really good tool if you're DIT on set, which is Daly's digital imaging technician is the name. I don't know why I thought Daly's. Which is basically you take every cut or every shot from the day and put it back to back so the director can see what they need to redo or what they liked from the day. It's a really handy tool in doing so, and I'll show you guys why later. It also is a little more intuitive than Premiere. I'm sure you've heard professors say, like, the Adobe Suite is like entering an airplane cockpit, and, like, there's so many buttons and tools and stuff everywhere that it's really intimidating on your first go. Have you not heard that? You're giving me the glance. Okay. It's more intuitive, and it's nicer. Okay. So what I'm going to do for this demo is I've made copies of steps along the way. So I'm going to do one step of a larger step, just as an example, and then my next step in there is going to have that previous one all finished. So we're gonna start with making a project. So unlike
Anyone
questions before.
open Resolve before? What have you used it for?
Grading.
Okay. Where,
Like a
where
little
was that
bit.
edit from?
It was all Premiere. We had so much fun with XMLs
Mhm.
and Premiere CS6. We really hates getting XMLs back.
God.
Okay.
Same.
Okay.
I have the export only ones, and the feedback to computers have it on it because it's free.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've ever used Resolve.
It's fantastic, as I keep saying. So, unlike Premiere, let's get started. Unlike Premiere, it doesn't save specific files for your project. So when you go save project, it's not going to a location that you've determined. I know. I can't get the thumbnail out of there. It won't go to a specific place you've determined unless you specifically tell it so. So, let's say, for example, I was like, I'm going to make a new project. Go in here, I'm going to call it Resolve Demo Test or something, right? Create. So all of a sudden you're right into this program. If you try to find this anywhere, you don't really know where it's saved to. So you've got save project as. If you do save project as, it just renames it. Basically what happens is, I'll go into manager. Basically what happens is you have databases, which is like a location on your computer that's within Resolve itself. You can tell it to go to a different hard drive, you can tell it to go to a folder specifically, but default it goes to your local database, which is the computer you're working on, the station you're working on. So that's important to remember. Another thing about that is you can export out a file that you can then share and use, but you just have to manually do that.
Basically, if you're working in the color room here, where we have the studio version of Resolve, if you're working on the computer on closest to the door, if you don't export your project to your hard drive, you won't be able to access your project if you just save it, because it'll be saved to that computer. It won't be saved to your hard drive to use on another computer.
Forever. So I accidentally closed Resolve. Cool. So
And I will
Great.
say that I think Resolve is similar to Avid in this way, that you need to set it up properly at the beginning.
yeah,
Else you kind of, so you need to know what specs you're working with and how to set up your project.
that's true. So if I wanted to say, put my project on a specific place, I would go to new database, and I would either have a disk, so a hard drive connected to it. I don't know what that is. If anyone knows, please tell me. But you would basically be creating one inside of a disk, and then it would save it to that for you. Cool.
Okay.
SQL's database language.
What?
Is that what you were saying? That we
This thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's probably just a different way of setting it up.
Before you go much further, I would say there is a Resolve certification that you can do, and it's free, and I've done it.
Okay. So, what we're gonna do is create a project. I've made a fake version here. So, those of you who follow me on Instagram will know that I had a recent adventure when it was snowing to Therm that I made out of fun. I needed footage for this demo, so I just used that. So I hope you don't mind me walking through the snow alone. To get to Therm, which I didn't do that much. So if you have your files set up properly, you'll have it organized into multiple folders. For this, I just did it really basic. My raw footage here, my assets, which includes my photos, just still images, and then a music file, and then exports when we're done, exports will go. Yes?
I'm so tempted to rename these so I know what they are.
Well, Shayna, let me tell you why that's a terrible idea. When you never want to touch your original files because you don't know who you're going to be passing this project to. And if it's your own project, you still don't know who could be looking at it or whatever. If you made a backup somewhere else and it's a different name, you don't know which file is what file. It's always a good idea to rename your files in your NLE. So in Premiere or in Resolve, you can rename your media clips once you've imported them. But please don't do this and type away. Yeah. Cool. So we're here in Resolve, and we're going to go to the Media tab. This is the first tab you'll see down here. The workflow essentially goes left to right, with the exception of really cut, depending on what you're doing, Fusion and Fairlight. So what you're going to do here is try to find your media. So mine is going to be in my users. I can also drag. That's also one way to do it. Drag and drop into here. So here, my desktop. Nice picture of Dante. Okay, so here's all my footage. There's multiple ways you can view this. You've got your little thumbnails. And if you notice from just me doing that, it'll give me a quick little scrub through of what is in the clip. This is really, really helpful, and you don't have to double click it and watch it all over again. You can just say, okay, is this the one where I talk to the camera and tell people what I'm doing? Yes. Right. Great. Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear. All right. So it basically, with importing media, it works the same as Premiere, where it'll make a link to that file. It doesn't import like Avid. Avid imports and transcodes and then shoves those files within itself so that you can never touch it or move it, which is sometimes a really good thing and sometimes a really bad thing. Here it's the same thing of link-based stuff. So if I deleted a file or moved it somewhere else, Resolve's not going to know where it is. You're going to have to tell it where to find that. So right now we're just looking at media. It's not imported. This is just a viewer of what I have on my desktop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Command A to select all. You can also click and drag like this. You can also click one at a time. And then I'm going to drag them into my media pool. So right here, it's telling me that I have a different frame rate than the current project settings. This will always happen to you when you create a new project, pretty much no matter what, because Resolve has its own determined frame rate when it makes a new project. You can always change that going forward. This is also a friendly reminder that you might want to make sure that your timeline is the same frame rate as your footage. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. If you wanted to change it, so let's say right now I'm going to change it, but if I said, no, I don't like that frame rate, even though it matches, I can bring it back. So if I go in here, there is play.
So if you want to change it, it's going to change the format of the timeline or the format of the footage?
It's going to take the project. So basically your timeline, if you have 30 frames per second footage and you throw it into a 25 frames per second timeline, those files in that timeline will then become 25 frames per second. So you'll lose frames, or there'll be some weird like
That's why I say it's like
interlacing.
Avid, that you have to set your project settings up first before you can make timelines.
Yeah.
Not like Premiere, which you can have a different timeline, different specs for everything within one project.
Right. So if you wanted to change your resolution of your timeline, you can go to that in here,
Got
where
there from that little.
the little cog in the corner. Yep. So if I want to start organizing my media, this is a really good way to start organizing. I'm going to add a bin. Same thing as Premiere in terms of bin. So I'm just going to say footage. And it's always a good idea to repeat the same folder structure you had in your drive in your project, because that way you can more easily tell where your footage is. So if I put all this,
You could have imported the folder.
yeah, I could have imported the folder, that's true. But I just wanted to illustrate this. You can also turn that off. I don't know how right now, but so for example, you could put that in there, footage, and then you would know that back in your original Finder window, in footage, all of that stuff is the same and should be unchanged. If you ever are like, I don't know where this file is, you can right-click this and reveal in Finder, which will tell you exactly which file it is and where it is, which is incredibly helpful when you have a lot of shots lined up. Cool, so I'm going to open a new project. One. Right, so here I have everything organized, and you also see that I added a timelines bin. Timelines act similar to footage, in that it contains an entire timeline, like Premiere. Premieres are called sequences. Sequences and timelines are the same thing in this program. Or, you know, they mean the same thing. So here's my timeline. Next, we're going to go to the cut section. Actually, first, before we do anything, is there any questions about the media tab? No? Okay. One other thing that's pretty nice about Resolve is you can find all your metadata about your clip in here. You can also move all this around, so it's really easy to navigate. If I took out audio, put on metadata, like my name, you can see everything here. Additionally, if you were to just click this little 3-dot box here, you can quickly see it's 30 frames a second, it's 1920, it's 12 seconds and 8 frames long. What? Oh, it's H.264, and it was made on February 7th, which you won't always have. Cool. So now we're gonna, yeah, what's up?
Does Resolve have any like weird rules when it comes to bids and things? Like I know Avid has like the bids and
Yeah.
like weird things in Resolve.
There shouldn't be.
Okay.
From what I know, you can just keep adding bin after bin inside of bin. There's also smart bins, which is like basically you can search within that. I haven't used them a whole lot.
Basically add keywords to your files without like being in the file name.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So the labels. or-
Yeah, essentially labels.
Yeah.
If you were a doc maker and you said, I have this shot of this person saying yes, right, you would label in like put in the label that this person says yes there, and if it was in a smart bin, you can search and find all the clips of them saying yes instead of going through footage to find that answer.
I think the only weird thing, kind of going off your question, is when you're importing the files, there's different ways to import.
Yeah.
So you can import as is and drag it in, or you can like import as a max, as an alpha channel, as a reference file. So that's where you need to be more specific on what it is that you're bringing in.
Cool. So, and I am going way too long on this, but from here we're going to move to cut. Cut and edit are more or less the exact same thing, except cut is a more simplified version. If anyone's used Premiere Rush before, which is like the mobile phone editing thing, it's very similar to this. It's kind of limiting cut, but it's good for getting things done quickly. If you're doing dailies on set and you have a batch of files that you want to put back to back, just having them here, dragging and dropping them is really simple, but it doesn't give you the full editing capability of like cutting here and jetting out cut and manipulating audio and stuff like that. So I don't use cut all that much.
It's new in this version, so no one's using it yet. But
I stand by, I think like social media people and influencers are using it more than Edit because it's similar to iMovie and it's also free. I do think you're going to see, I think, a lot of people who are invested in social media using this in the future because it's free. Cool. Edit. We're going to move some stuff in. So this looks a lot more familiar if you know Premiere. But you have your preview monitor here, your program monitor here. You can tell what is viewing what. Here it says timeline 1. This is my timeline 1. And we can find that out by somehow, where's the name? I know you're here. See, it's like checked. That means you're currently on that timeline. Cool. So, I'm going to do a few things. It does work the same as Premiere where you can grab... Stop. Stop me. You can grab your file and you can just drop it in. And right away you can see there's waveform. You can see video thumbnail. You can also change how big that looks. So if you want it to be... Right now it's, film, thumbnail is smaller. Or you can make it look like that. Any way is acceptable. Sometimes if you don't see audio like we are going to see right now, you have to turn on, it's kind of weird, you have to turn on these settings and then you have to go up here and turn it off and turn it back on. What?
Go back to the where we think the thumbnail, which is good.
Oh. Sometimes I was battling with this earlier when I was, here we go. Audio waveforms. Why give me two options? I don't know. Anyway, here it is. Cool. So another way besides dragging and dropping is if you double click here, you can see it in your preview monitor. And there's a few ways to insert this video into your timeline. One way is to overwrite clip, which should at the playhead, so this right here, it should take this clip at the in and out points, which I haven't set, so it'll do it from the beginning. It should put that right where the playhead is. Yeah, and it overwrote or deleted the rest of the clip of this one. So that's one way to do it. Another way is insert, which will cut the clip in half and then put that, it will insert that video in between those two without deleting. So I can do that, and you notice it sandwiches it right between these two. Also, it does ripple, so it will affect everything else in the bottom of the timeline, and you won't have to go back and readjust things. So I'm going to delete that. And so regular delete doesn't do that ripple, but if you do shift delete, it will do it for you. Found that out today. And I like the little animation you get when it slides back into place. Yeah. Cool. So the last way is replace, which I haven't messed with very much. And I'm pretty sure it just straight up replaces it. And it did. Perfect. So it kept the same amount of time, but from the beginning of this clip, put it there and went till the amount of time of the other clip.
Super useful for the box files.
Yeah. Very, very useful for proxies. Cool. So, another thing you can do, which I've set up keyboard shortcuts for, which are different than the generic one, but the blade tool is the same as the cut tool or the razor tool in Premiere. I've set mine to C because that's what it is in Premiere. And so I can go between blade and then I set my regular selection to V because it's also the same in Premiere. So you can go back and forth between the two.
Sandra?
It's pretty helpful. You need to be quiet. Me. Cool. Another thing to watch out for is this little magnet needs magnetic snapping. So if I were to take this clip here, let's add it to there. What it'll basically do is see how it kind of jumps a little bit to that point? That's magnetic snapping. If I turn it off, I can move freely, do whatever I want. This is helpful when you're trying to align like certain audio clips, not necessarily syncing, but if you're trying to keep it all together and not go frame by frame, it's helpful. Most of the time I keep it off, but whatever. Linking here. So you know how in Premiere it'll keep your audio files and your video files together no matter what, and then you have to specifically go into that one clip and say, I don't want these together, and then delete it? This button right here fixes all of your problems and unlinks everything from everything. So if I hit this, these are still on top of each other, so they're still in sync, but I can just do this as much as I want. And if you notice this number down here, represents how off the video is from the audio. So it's a second and 18 frames off of the audio, ahead of the audio, that's why there's a plus. And then this is second and 18 frames behind. So, there you go.
Do that in a minute with the room.
I don't know. They probably stay, no, just kidding. Oh, yes I will. There you go. So, if you purposefully want to do it and then link it back, you can also do that. Very helpful. Cool. Any questions about the edit tab that you have? Nobody? Okay, cool. And then I'm going to move into the next one. Version 2. Let's see. Cool. So I've edited together a little clip that we could watch, but I don't want to subject you to. I've done a few J and L cuts here by a few frames because none of my footage was intended to be edited like that, but may do. Okay. One of the other things we can do is we go through this and we say, okay, this video is clearly, this cameraman is a moron and doesn't know how to shoot his phone video horizontally. So what we can do to change that, similar to Premiere but not the exact same, let's go into it, highlight that clip. You go to, where are you? Inspector here in the top corner. This is basically the same as in Adobe Premiere when you have like options, I think is the name of it, and it's usually in the top left of the screen. It's usually like up here when you select the clip, but this time it's on the other side. So I click Inspector. You can, what? Effects Control. Thank you, Jack. So here you will find different ways to manipulate your image, basic manipulation, not any motion graphics or dissolves or anything ridiculous. So if I said, this guy's dumb, we need to change this angle to correctly represent the way it's filmed. So, ooh, I don't know why it's flipped in half. Oh, because I flipped it like a moron. Okay, I did that in world, in camera, whatever. So, rotation angle. This is going to be our friend. Since it's like this, and I need to turn it one section, I guess. Yeah, we're going to turn it 90 degrees. We hit enter. But, all of a sudden, we are not full frame anymore. So what you can do to fix that is change the, I think it's called zoom, but you fix it so it fills up your whole screen. I think 1.8 was the one I went with. Cool. And now we have a correctly shot clip made to look like he did it on purpose. Cool. What's next? Cool. Effects libraries. Yes. Go ahead.
The timeline set up to start at 1 hour. Did you do that, or did it start at 5
I did that for you. I didn't set that up by myself. You can set it up like that. I'm pretty sure in the yeah.
That's why I was like,
So it would always start here, and then it goes from here the time code. So this is hours, minutes, seconds, and frames, not milliseconds, because I thought it was milliseconds until like a year ago.
I mean, did you take the other lesson?
This one, but then before that was like 3. Cool. So, effects library. If you want to add a cross dissolve, you want to add something to it, you go up here to effects library, and it'll add this tab. You can also get rid of any of this stuff if you don't want it, just by unselecting. So now it's not highlighted, not highlighted. This is a history of every edit you've ever done. This is ridiculous, but also fantastic. If you really want to get into it. So cool, audio. You got audio transitions. You got video. Really, everything you could ever want is in here. You can also do titles, but we're going to talk about that in a minute. Yeah, so you can favorite as you go. It's a little bit laggy, as you can tell, but yeah. And I'm sure if I do favorite it, it'll be another folder. There it is, favorites. Down there. Cool. Any other questions about edit? Cool. So let's pretend I did this whole thing and I'm very happy with it. Let's say I want to do some motion graphics to it or do something crazy with my face or something like that. We are going to go to Fusion. Fusion was a program long before Resolve bought it, used for 2D visual effects and compositing, also motion graphics. If you have worked with the version that's by itself, Fusion by itself, it's a little weird how it's integrated in here, but I think I kind of figured it out a little bit. I'm just going to skip ahead because I don't want to like teach on how to do this, but basically this is node based, which is different from a different way of viewing time digitally. And I know that sounds more confusing, but I promise if you work with it, you'll understand it a little bit, versus how we traditionally think of time as a linear thing and layers on top of layers do things and the top one shows up first. That doesn't happen in Fusion. It's more like a flow chart. So this thing does this thing to this thing, and you do have a timeline here, but it's a frame counter, because when you're working with visual effects, you're working with individual frames. How you think? So Fusion and After Effects are similar but different. They're used for similar things, but Fusion is, I think, more stable than After Effects. Why are you laughing at me?
I guess it's accurate.
Like software-wise, I feel like After Effects has crashed and burned my computer more than Fusion. Cool. So I'm just gonna go to the next file where I tried to make, I tried to track some text. It didn't really work, or not text. I tried to whatever. So I'm in version 2 right now.
The problem with Fusion is that no one uses it. And no one on the internet, or no one on the internet who likes to talk about the internet uses it. tons of people talk about After Effects. There's so many tutorials on After Effects. You don't need anyone to do After Effects other than YouTube. But if you don't have a personal VFX person next to you, then like it's like there's not really like documentation. You just kind of need to like
We're too busy,
figure it out.
so
Yeah.
we're not gonna help you guys any. But I am now teaching, so.
Hello, can you please? Thank you. I'm just gonna do it real quick.
Probably made that
Yeah, me too.
Well, so what's the bottom side? It used to be on top first.
Oh, the timeline?
No,
different.
What, this? Oh, I don't know, you can hide it.
That's all the stuff that used to be on the top.
I've been hiding it. There you go.
Oh,
That's orange?
yes. Make it colorful.
I have to poke fun at myself or else it gets sad. Okay, text plus, go here. And see, I can't judge the color, so that's the effect matte. Is that the foreground? Yes. Okay, cool. Go. And then I have to make you behave somehow. Well, I guess I have to track it first. Alright, so what I'm doing now is setting a tracker point which will look at the screen and say, I'm going to follow this pixel from here to here to here to here. There is no good point on my face to track. Yeah. That's disgusting. I don't want to...
Now that they don't blink.
That is true.
Corner.
On the corner. What am I doing? Alright, so this... do a lot. But I don't want to get my eye because my eye is the same color. But I guess it's contrast, so it doesn't matter. Also blow up your... It doesn't... this doesn't matter. I'm also at the end of my clip, so... What?
Blue. Is that right?
There's no wrong answer. Well, I guess blue is generally...
Alright, so whatever, I don't know, that has high contrast, that doesn't really, that definitely doesn't. I think red.
You pick a corner of your natural, but not this thing.
Oh. Why, you don't want to look up my nose?
I don't think the computer will be able to find that spot.
So it looks like that might have, I don't know. What do you think, Shayna? Red, great, cool. Fun. So I'm gonna track forward. So it's gonna try. The computer's gonna try to figure out where my nose is at a certain point in time, and you're gonna hear it. So there you go. And there's a point where I move my entire head. so after a certain point, it kind of doesn't matter. For this clip only, because clearly. So obviously we have some problems. It does, and it's quite beautiful, if I do say so myself. So, whatever. You can hear my fans on my computer speeding up. Then what I'm going to do is connect my text to... Well... Come on. Thank you. Cool. Then what I'm going to do is connect this to here. Then Mm-mm. Oh, okay, I remember. Yay.
Whoa.
So then media out. I don't want to see that, though. What? So you see it kind of tracked to my face until a certain point where it's just going to go ridiculous. I mean, the text is not wrong, but it is definitely not correct. Cool. Yeah, that's just a really rough me not having done visual effects in a year. Okay, whatever. 2 years.
When's the last time?
Am I dating myself? Okay, cool. So we're gonna open another version. We're gonna open version 4. Let's see. Cool. I think I did the exact. Oh no, I was trying to track. Basically, I was trying to track a blur to cover my whole face, but that just didn't work. So we're not gonna even mention it anymore. Cool. So in color tab, the thing we've all been waiting for, you can change pretty much every setting you have regarding color in the digital world. Does that make sense? You can change everything. So, for example, here's me. Can I play? Alright, it was, yeah. Yeah, I was also underwater a little bit, but whatever. I had my leg in a pond.
What are you doing?
Uncovering Therm. I'll have a screening at the end if anyone wants to stay. Okay, cool. So this is that. I want to make it look like I'm in the desert and grade it like every Hollywood film thinks Mexico looks like. So what we're going to do is add a corrector node. Append it to here. This is also node based too, similar to Fusion, or exactly the same as Fusion. It's also not a good idea to correct on top of your original layer because then you have nothing to go back to unless you hit Command Z like 40 times. So it's a good idea to always make a new node and then put it after so that you can see. You can also tell the difference between the two of them once you've changed it. So what we're going to do for this is crunch the whites just a little bit. And then I'm going to take these colors is, what does Y stand for? Is it just light? The letter Y is throwing me off, but it's just basically it's not yellow, it's like, yeah. So, whatever, I'm not going to even bother. So, I'm going to crunch them up. And then what I'm going to do is try to make it look yellow. So I'm going to drop the blue all the way down. I'm going to drop the green a little bit. I'm also going to drop the red a little bit, like the green. This is just in curves too. This is one of like millions of ways you can change the color of your shot. Luminance. Right, because luminance has the letter Y in it.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to take green. I'm going to crunch it a little bit. Tell me when I'm starting to get close, because I'm colorblind. Yellow. Disgusting yellow. Yeah, you think so? Okay. I also want to make it look as bad as possible, so let me know if I've got that down. Nope.
No, there we go.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Ethan. Also, yeah. Cool, and now I'm in the desert, minus the snow hitting me.
Come on, there's snow in the desert all the time.
Alright, good, cool. So another thing you can do is, I really like this look. I think this is what I want to use the rest of my film. What I can do is say, I want this color profile, basically it's called a still. So you're going to grab a still. Now it's got a kind of a snapshot of the settings that you had on this file. So I'm going to go into the next one here, which is, we'll play it. Right? Alright, so it went up from clip to clip, but we're gonna start with this. So I want to make this look like sand, right, with the color that I've made. What you can do is apply grade. So I right click and I hit apply grade. Notice I'm also highlighted on this. I also almost did something bad. And now I'm going to fix it. So I'm on that one, right click this, apply grade. Cool, now it looks like sand. Not really, but. So you can also test how similar they look to each other. So I can scroll through, oh, not that. I wonder if it plays too. No, it doesn't. So this is the clip I'm on, and you can compare more easily between two shots. So if you're trying to match someone's skin to the last shot you have, this is really helpful, this window here, because you can put the last shot next to what you're trying to do. Any questions about color? I know it's really basic, what I've taught. Yeah.
What if I want this to be on every clip?
Well, if you want it to be on every clip, Shayna, that would be a very simple thing to do, because you can go down here, I Command A, selected everything, I can do this. And now they're all disgusting. So they all look like what Hollywood thinks Mexico looks like.
So you could also highlight them, set them already corrected, and make them more.
Oh, really? Yeah, 2 years ago. Okay. Yes, it looks like it did. No. No. Oh, also, well, this is like the original file, and this is the corrected file, like flipped.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I like that it tells you which one you're going to be using.
Yeah, so the little stars are the ones that indicate if you've done it in Fusion. There's also a way you can completely get rid of Fusion and color. Like the effects you've done. Yeah. So if I want to, like, that's what it looked like when we started, and much better. Great. Are there any questions about color? I know I'm going really fast through it, but
What happens if you go back to the edit page?
if you go back to the edit page, it should apply it for everything. So that's what I'm saying, like, moving through Resolve is really easy because everything sticks to it, like, its own contained program, and nothing, yeah, everything updates within itself, so it's really easy to manipulate. It's pretty lovely. Okay, cool. So we are going to go into Fairlight for like a second. What am I on? 4, go 5. 1 minute warning. God. Okay, we'll make this fast. So in this one, I color that. This was the test. Maybe I didn't color it differently. I think I undid it. Doesn't matter. Okay, cool. So, if I wanted to add music to my cut here, I would go back to my Edit tab, say my media pool, where's my asset, there's my music. I've got some, nope, I've got some tense, like, tension music. Like, can't really hear it because it's not super loud. I can make it louder, but I don't know if any of us want that. Right, crazy stuff. So let's throw it. Stop. Throw it in. This is a bad idea. Throw it in down here. Great.
I'm on a mission to find out what therm is, and we're gonna use the snow as a cover up.
All right, so that music's too loud. The music's too loud. I really, really don't like it that loud. I want to change it. I'm gonna go in here. In my, how do I? Okay, cool. There's a little scroll thing here. Here's A3, the third audio track. Here's the third audio track that includes, and I just muted it. Come back. There we go. Okay. I said this is too loud.
So that I can go and
I think that's way too loud, so I'm gonna drop it low.
find it.
Oh,
Alright. Alright, and then you can't hear the music anymore. Inversely, you can make it very loud.
My phone, the house is somewhere that way.
Right? Okay. Cool. That's Fairlight. No one
Why is
uses
it
it.
bad?
It's bad because it's a weird interface compared to Pro Tools. Pro Tools is just the best for audio. Mixing, this is mostly mixing and not editing. What? No, Pro Tools is not free. So this could be an alternative, but this is mostly used for mixing and not editing. I guess you can slip stuff back and forth, but I think they're not called buses. Sliders, yeah. They're pretty handy. Better than Premiere's. Right, and you can also turn it off or on, turn meters on or off. Pretty easy. Alright, cool. So, we're going to go to the next one, and I'm sorry if people have to leave. It's alright. You just missed the Premiere. Let's see. This was all building towards the Premiere.
Watching Final Project?
Yeah, we're just going to do deliverables. So with this new one, I did this earlier, and I just put the, this is also the color profile I did from it before. Okay, so I put the music in there, great. Gonna go to deliver. This is basically your export thing from Premiere. It's a lot easier, and also better for dailies because you can render out your timeline as one whole rendered video file, or each clip can be its own video file, which is really, really helpful for dailies because you could just throw it all on a timeline and hit individual clips, render it out, and then you have all your daily files broken up into each take. Or you can use it for proxies and have each individual file broken up into proxies through one render. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all your settings on like what you want your format, your codec is all here. Your resolution, notice it only goes up to UHD. Yeah. Those are lower, but only goes up to UHD. If you pay $300 one time, you get Resolve forever and every update that comes with it, and you get to go past 4K. So I highly recommend that. You pay more for Adobe in probably a year and a half than you do this once, forever. Cool. Any questions? No? Great. One more. In the render tab, I'm going to do add to render queue. Well, I haven't named it and I haven't told it where to go yet, so that's pretty bad. Therm 2/2020. That's a disgusting date. Location, let's tell it to go back to our desktop, into our demo, and into our exports. Cool. H.264. I'm going to make it 720 just so it goes faster for right now. Whatever. Cool. Add to render queue. It's going to put it over here. The nice thing about this is you can also render, you can send multiple things to this render queue. before you start this. And then hit start render, and it'll do all of your renders in a row, kind of like Media Encoder if you've worked with it before. So yet another Adobe product inside of this with ease. You can also hide it, but because there's something in there, it won't hide. Cool. And then you start your render. It's going to go through the whole thing, every 1 minute of it. Actually, don't know how long we did it. See, I think that's a better color grade for what I want. What color is that? Oh, well,
I've asked you to turn it off.
great. And then, yeah, so it also rendered my in and out points, which has a lot of black, which will be great. But also, now I know exactly where it is too, and I can find that out by Reveal in Finder. And there it is.
Hello world, this is Nick. I'm on a mission to find out what therm is, and we're gonna use
this isn't the
snow
real
as a
version?
cover up so that I can go and find it.
Right, so I don't want to spoil it. So this isn't the whole one. So this has been pretty much a very, very introductory and quick crash course on Resolve. If anyone has any last questions, I am very available. Yeah. Yeah.
The hotkeys, then how fucked up is that?
Pretty well, actually. I forgot. Thank you. Because
One of the default are
so you can like choose what you want. This one isn't exactly the same. As I said before, like cut and normal like C and V or whatever aren't C and V in Premiere, so I had to make my own. But you can. Yeah. So, and then if you also want to change it, that's all in here. It's pretty easy. It'll tell you too if you overwrite something and where it is. Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna say goodbye to this screen recording. What? Oh, sorry. How do I stop the screen recording? Oh, duh. Okay, me being stupid on camera.